Welcome to The Drop for Today, the show where we pause the noise and get into real conversations that make you think, reflect, and level up. I'm your host, and whether this is your first time listening or you've been rocking with us for a while, thank you for being here. Today we've got something good lined up, so relax, lock in, and let's get into it.
Today, we're really getting into something crucial. I honestly think it's every veteran's most important next mission, figuring out that whole transition from military to civilian life.
It really is a huge shift.
Yeah, and we're not just, scratching the surface today. We want to dive deep into 3 key pillars, things that are absolutely essential for building a strong foundation after service.
Right.
So we'll be digging into understanding the full picture of your military benefits. We'll look at how to strategically use higher education opportunities and tackling property ownership, especially getting clear on those property taxes, which can be confusing.
Very confusing sometimes.
Our goal, our mission today is really just to put through the noise, cut through all the complexity. We want to give you clear, actionable insights, maybe some surprising facts you can actually use right now. Doesn't matter if you're days away from getting out or, years into being a civilian.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, this stuff isn't just abstract. These areas, benefits, education, property, they were the ground I was trying to find my footing on after I got out. Sometimes stumbled a bit,
That's a very common experience.
I definitely remember just staring at my DD-214, felt this weird mix of huge relief, but also this really deep, almost paralyzing feeling of, okay, what now?
The big unknown.
Yeah, it's like they hand you this brand new map for your life, but it feels like it's written in a language you barely understand.
Right.
And that feeling, stepping into this completely new, sometimes overwhelming civilian world after years of structure, it's incredibly common. So I just want anyone listening to know you are absolutely not alone in feeling that way. We're here to try and help translate that map, decode the terrain, figure out the best ways forward.
And that's exactly why this deep dive is so important.
Yeah.
Like you said, we're not just here to repeat the stuff you can find with a quick Google search.
Yeah.
We really want to peel back the layers, go beyond the obvious, uncover some surprising things, maybe bust a few myths.
Oh, there are definitely myths out there.
There are. And give you practical, actual steps you can take. Because remember, transitioning, it's not just about taking off the uniform. It's really about strategically building a whole new foundation for your life, brick by brick, carefully placed.
Yeah, building that next chapter.
Exactly. And every piece of information we talk about today is designed to empower you, to make that foundation incredibly solid, setting you up for success, but success on your terms.
All right, so we've got our map. Let's start this next mission. First stop, securing the base camp. That means really understanding your military benefits. Think of these like the essential gear you packed for this journey, even if some of it feels like it's in a foreign language right now.
That's a good analogy.
When someone gets out, ETSs, whether it's after 4 years or 20, man, there's just a flood of information thrown at you.
It's overwhelming.
Totally. So let's cut right to it. Someone's looking at their DD-214. Maybe they're just a week or 2 out from that final day. What are the very first benefits they absolutely need to look into? Like step 1, the immediate priority to avoid messing something critical up.
That's fundamentally important because taking action right away in those first few weeks, it can genuinely save you a ton of headaches later on, prevent missed opportunities. So the absolute top priorities right after separating, they really involve securing your immediate health care. And maybe even more importantly, linking up with the right support system, someone who can actually guide you through this whole benefits maze.
Okay, so healthcare first. What does that look like?
First thing, immediately, look into applying for initial VA healthcare. And this isn't just, for service-connected disabilities. A lot of people think that.
Right, I've heard that. Only if you're rated.
No, that's a big misconception. It's comprehensive care. It covers a whole range of medical needs, preventative stuff, specialized treatments, you name it. Every single separating service member should apply for enrollment in the VA healthcare system. Often you want to do that within the first 180 days to make sure there's no gap in your care.
180 days.
Okay. Don't just assume you won't qualify. There are different priority groups for enrollment, and actually, a lot of veterans are eligible even without a service-connected condition. The process usually starts with submitting VA Form 1010EZ. You do it online at va.gov, pretty straightforward. Or, and this ties into the second point, you can get help from a VSO.
Okay, VSO. You mentioned that support system. What's a VSO?
Yeah, parallel to getting healthcare sorted, and I'd argue just as critical, you need to connect with a local veteran service officer. A VSO, these folks aren't just like government workers pushing paper. They're accredited professionals. A lot of them are veterans themselves.
Ah, okay. So they get it.
They absolutely get it. They specialize in navigating this incredibly complex maze of VA benefits. They can help you figure out all the potential benefits you might be entitled to: healthcare, education, disability comp, the whole 9 yards.
Wow, okay.
They'll help you fill out the claims meticulously, make sure they're accurate, help you file them, and they can even act as your advocate if problems pop up.
Like a guide and a lawyer rolled into one.
Kind of. Think of them as your personal interpreter for VA speak. Because let's be honest.
It's its own language.
It absolutely is. And the best part, their services are completely free.
Free? Really?
Totally free. And they can help you avoid those common mistakes, like filing claims wrong or missing key documents, which can cause huge delays or even get you denied.
Okay, so VA healthcare enrollment and find a VSO. What else right at the start?
Beyond those two big ones, understanding preliminary unemployment benefits is important, or transition assistance programs.
Yeah.
The Department of Labor runs some of these. They're critical for keeping things stable financially right after you separate.
Right, like TPLAS.
Exactly. Programs like the Transition Assistance Program, TAP, are mandatory for most people getting out.
Yeah.
And they give you good info on resumes, job searching, understanding your benefits. But honestly, the sheer amount of info in TP can be overwhelming.
Yeah, it's like drinking from a fire hose sometimes.
It really is, which is why having that VSO relationship from the start is still so essential. The biggest pitfall if you delay, it's that lapse. A gap in crucial medical coverage or maybe financial support that happens if you wait too long to apply for these things. So many veterans realize way too late that they could have been getting benefits right from day one.
Don't wait. Get on it immediately. Got it. You've had some really crucial first steps there. But you're right, that DD 214, it feels like crossing the finish line, doesn't it?
It does.
But it's really just the start of a whole new mission. I've heard vets say it feels like they get handed this massive binder full of info on day one.
Mm-hmm. The famous binder.
And then, good luck. Figure it out.
Yeah, pretty much.
So what about those benefits that are kind of buried in that binder? The ones people often overlook. Maybe things like caregiver support or those home adaptation grants. Things people might not even know exist.
That's a perfect way to put it, the hidden gems in that binder.
How do we make sure folks don't miss those? What's the secret sauce there?
You're spot on. So many veterans, and even their families, just aren't aware of the full range of support that's actually available. To avoid missing out, really, two things are key. First, you got to do thorough, proactive research. Don't wait for the info to find you. And second, maintain that consistent, ongoing connection with your VSO. They know where the gems are hidden.
Okay, so tell me about caregiver support. Who's that actually for?
Right. Caregiver support programs. People often think they're only for the most severely injured veterans.
Yeah, like maybe someone needing round-the-clock care.
That's the common thought. But it actually covers a much wider range of conditions. It provides really vital financial help and emotional support to family members who are caring for a vet with a service-connected disability. And eligibility isn't just about having a high disability rating. It really hinges on whether the veteran needs help with activities of daily living ADLs. Bathing, dressing, eating.
Basic daily stuff.
Right. Or even instrumental ADLs, IADLs, like managing meds or finances. We often see veterans who are hesitant to even apply. They don't realize they might be eligible, even if their condition isn't the most obvious catastrophic injury.
Yeah.
Or maybe a condition developed years after service, but if it's linked back to their time in, it could still qualify.
Ah, okay. That's important.
The VA looks at the veteran's level of dependency and the financial help they give caregivers. It can seriously reduce the financial stress on families. It often allows the veteran to stay in their own home instead of needing other care. It's a massive benefit for long-term care, but honestly, shockingly underutilized.
Wow, okay. And home adaptation grants, what are those about?
Similarly, those home adaptation grants, like the SAH grant, Specially Adapted Housing,
All right.
or the SHA grant Special Housing Adaptation, these are designed to help seriously disabled veterans buy, build, or modify a home to accommodate their service-connected disability. The criteria are pretty specific, usually tied to permanent and total service-connected disabilities that really impact mobility or senses, or specific injuries like losing limbs or blindness.
So pretty significant disabilities.
Generally, yes.
Yeah.
For example, the SAH grant might help a veteran build a brand new accessible home from the ground up. The SHA grant might be more for modifications to an existing home. Widening doorways, installing ramps, roll-in showers, maybe special kitchen adaptations.
Making the current home livable again.
Exactly, making it work for their needs.
And the long-term impact of these, I can see how that would be huge.
Oh, it's profound. Think about an older veteran. Maybe they developed severe arthritis years after getting out, but it's still linked back to their service. A home adaptation grant could literally mean the difference between them staying independent in the home they love,
Right.
versus having to move into assisted living.
Yeah, that's huge for quality of life.
Or imagine a vet with a severe spinal injury from decades ago. These grants can help update their home, give them much more autonomy, more dignity. These programs often get missed because you really have to dig into the eligibility rules. They're not advertised like the GI Bill is.
Right, not front and center.
Exactly. It's about looking beyond the headlines and understanding the VA offers support for very specific, sometimes complex, evolving needs that can last a veteran's whole life. So the key is, don't self-disqualify. Talk to your VSO. Explore every single possibility.
That's such a critical point. Don't count yourself out before you even try. I remember, man, the first time I logged into eBenefits, I honestly had zero clue what I was looking at.
Yeah. It's not the most intuitive platform sometimes.
It felt like trying to read a foreign language with a really terrible dictionary.
Right.
And the disability claims section, that was probably the most intimidating part of all.
Understandably so.
I've heard people say that whole process takes years. It's like this constant battle, almost a full-time job, just managing the claim. Is that really how it is for everyone? Or is there a better way to navigate the VA disability process without getting totally overwhelmed or feeling like you're just stuck in red tape forever?
You're right. It can feel like a bureaucratic maze, a labyrinth.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's super easy to get overwhelmed. And while, yes, it can be a lengthy process, it doesn't have to be a constant battle, not if you approach it systematically. And crucially, with the right support. The key is really breaking it down into manageable stages.
Okay, stages. What's stage one?
Stage one,
Yeah.
meticulous preparation. This is, I'd argue, the absolute most crucial step. You have got to gather all your medical records, everything. Military ones, your service treatment records, STRs, and also any civilian records, anything that documents your injuries, illnesses, conditions, every hospital visit, clinic note, any diagnosis you got after service.
Even stuff from years later.
Absolutely. Because the cornerstone of a successful claim is strong medical evidence that clearly links your current condition back to your military service. That connection, that's often called the nexus.
Nexus, okay.
And a lot of veterans overlook those civilian records. But if you saw a doctor after service for something that started or got worse during service, those records are vital.
Don't just dump a pile of papers on them.
Right. Organize them. Maybe even highlight the key parts. And again, a VSO can really help you pinpoint exactly which records are most important for your specific claim.
Okay, prep done. Stage two.
Stage two, filing the claim itself. Now, you can file it yourself online through va.gov, but I strongly, strongly recommend using a VSO.
You keep coming back to the VSO.
Because they have the expertise.
Right.
They can spot all the potential service-connected conditions you might have, even ones you haven't thought of. They know how to fill out the forms like the VA Form 21526EZ, that's the main application accurately, and they submit it correctly the first time. That right there significantly cuts down on errors that cause delays.
Avoids the back and forth.
Exactly. There's this common myth that the VA is like actively looking for reasons to deny you. But really, they're looking for clear evidence and that logical connection, that nexus back to your service. The VSO helps you present that clearly.
Makes sense. What's stage three?
Stage three, the C&P exams, compensation and pension exams. Once you file, the VA will often schedule you for one or maybe more of these exams.
Ah, the infamous C&P exam.
Yep, and they're critical. They provide current medical evidence about your condition and help establish how severe it is. So it's really vital when you go to these exams to be open, be thorough with the examiner, tell them about all your symptoms, how they started, and most importantly, how they actually impact your daily life and your ability to work.
Don't downplay it.
Absolutely do not downplay it. Don't assume the examiner has read your whole file or knows your history. If you have a bad day, talk about your bad days. If certain things are impossible for you to do, say so. This is really your chance to give them a clear, honest picture of your current health situation.
Okay, C&P done. what's the final stage?
Stage 4, the decision and potentially the appeals process. After the exams, the VA reviews everything and sends you a decision letter. Some key do's here. Be persistent. Keep copies of everything you submit. Track your claim status online at va.gov diligently.
And the don'ts?
Don't exaggerate symptoms. Stick to the facts that can be verified. And critically, don't give up if your initial claim gets denied or if you get a rating you think is too low.
The fight isn't necessarily over.
Not at all. The appeals process has actually been streamlined recently. There are basically 3 options, 3 lanes. A supplemental claim, if you have new evidence, a higher level review if you want a senior person to look at the same evidence again, or a board appeal, which could involve a hearing with a veterans law judge. Knowing which lane is right for your situation is key, and guess who can help with that?
Let me guess. A VSO.
Bingo. They provide invaluable guidance on appeals. Look, it really is often a marathon, not a sprint, but patience, persistence, solid documentation, and getting that expert support from a VSO, that dramatically increases your chances of success. So many successful claims happen because people stuck with it, maybe through an appeal or 2.
That's incredibly useful advice for tackling what feels like such a monster process. And speaking of long-term planning, thinking about that marathon where you decide to actually plant those new roots after service, that can really change your whole financial picture, right? Especially thinking about state-specific benefits. Are there big differences state by state? And how much should that really factor into deciding where to live? Because I've definitely heard some states are way more veteran-friendly than others, like a hidden financial perk.
Oh, absolutely. Your geographical location for this next mission, it matters.
Yeah.
Immensely. Especially when you're trying to maximize your veteran benefits. State-level benefits for veterans vary wildly across the country. And yeah, they can have a truly substantial impact on your finances, your lifestyle choices. They create advantages many people just don't even think about.
Like what, specifically?
Well, the biggest one is often property tax exemptions for disabled veterans.
Yeah.
And we're not talking a tiny discount here. In some states, it can literally mean paying 0 property taxes on your main home.
0. Seriously.
Seriously. The level of exemption almost always links directly to your VA disability rating. So for instance, if you have a 100% service-connected disability rating, you could indeed pay 0 property taxes on your house in states like Texas, Florida, Alabama, Michigan. Quite a few, actually.
Wow. Okay, so my clarification earlier about Texas wasn't off base.
Not at all. It's a reality there, and in several other states. Now, in other states, it might be a partial exemption. Maybe they exempt a certain amount of your home's assessed value. Or it might be tied to specific criteria, like being rated permanent and total P&T.
So it's not always 100% or nothing.
Exactly. California, for example, has a basic exemption and a larger one for certain disabled vets, but it might not wipe out the whole tax bill. And the bigger one can be income dependent. But just think about that this alone can save a veteran thousands, maybe even tens of thousands of dollars every single year.
Yeah, that's basically like getting a massive annual bonus.
It directly impacts your cost of living, your disposable income. It's a continuous financial benefit.
Okay, property taxes are huge. What else varies by state?
Oh, lots. Beyond property taxes, states offer really diverse educational benefits. Many states give tuition waivers for their state universities or offer specific scholarships just for veterans and their dependents.
So that could stack with the GI Bill.
It often can, complementing or even extending your federal benefits. Employment preferences are another big one. Some states give veterans a significant advantage when applying for state jobs, or they might help with specific licensing or certification costs for trades.
Practical stuff.
Very practical. Some states even offer things like free hunting and fishing licenses, or have state-run veterans' homes, providing long-term care, reduced car registration fees. The list goes on.
So connecting this back to finding that post-military community, these benefits could be a deciding factor.
A huge decisive factor. If you're a veteran with a high disability rating, choosing a state like Texas or Florida or Arizona, it could mean a completely different financial reality compared to living in a state with fewer property tax breaks or less support for education and jobs. It's not just about the weather or finding a job or being near family. Those matter too.
Right.
It's about these tangible financial advantages that make a real long-term difference in your stability and quality of life. So researching the specific offerings on the State Department of Veterans Affairs websites, that should absolutely be part of your relocation planning. Like you said earlier, it's mission planning. You wouldn't deploy without intel on the terrain. Choosing where to live is kind of the same thing.
That's a really critical way to frame it, location as a strategic decision. Okay, speaking of strategic decisions, if you had to pick one benefit The one thing you see folks miss out on the most, or maybe just underutilize, the one you wish every single veteran would grab hold of and take full advantage of, what would it be and why? What's that foundational piece of support that maybe gets overlooked but could actually make the biggest difference long term?
That's a tough one because there's so many valuable benefits. But if I had to pick just one foundational thing every veteran should embrace, it would undoubtedly be establishing and maintaining that comprehensive ongoing relationship with an accredited veteran service officer, a VSO.
Okay, back to the VSO again, but framing it as the benefit itself. Interesting.
Exactly, because it's not a benefit in the traditional sense, like a check in the mail or a healthcare plan. Instead, the VSO relationship is the key. It's the master key that unlocks and helps you navigate all the other benefits effectively. Your VSO is your advocate, your interpreter, your guide through that whole, often confusing VA system. They are your tireless supporter.
And they're accredited, you said.
Accredited by the VA. They know the regulations, which change all the time. They understand the nuances of different claims. And again, their services are completely free.
That free part is still amazing.
The importance of this relationship just can't be overstated. Think about it. Veterans often only apply for the benefits they've already heard of, right? The ones they sort of understand.
Yeah, the big ones like the GI Bill or disability.
Right. But a VSO knows about all those lesser-known benefits we talked about earlier. The Caregiver Support, the home adaptation grants, state benefits. They know the specific details needed for a successful claim. They know the most effective ways to appeal a decision if you need to. They can make sure your paperwork is perfect right from the start, which prevents those frustrating delays or denials caused by simple admin errors.
Saves you time and headaches.
Tons of time and headaches. Plus, they stay current on changes in laws, new programs, shifting eligibility rules. That's practically a full-time job in itself. So let's say a condition you have gets worse years after you separate, or maybe a new condition pops up that's linked to service. Your VSO can help you file for an increased rating or file for secondary conditions. They make sure you keep receiving the full compensation you've earned over time.
So it's not just a one-time thing when you first get out. It's an ongoing resource.
Absolutely ongoing. They provide personalized advice tailored to your specific situation, your service history. So many veterans try to go it alone. They get frustrated with the bureaucracy, and they just give up. They end up leaving earned benefits on the table. A VSO empowers you to avoid that fate.
It really goes back to what I said about e-benefits, like having someone translate that foreign language for you, guiding you step by step.
Precisely. And how do you find one? Just search online for a VSO in your local area. Many of the big veteran organizations, American Legion, VFW, DAV, PVA, they have VSOs on staff. Or your county or state government likely has a veteran services office. Find them. Connect with them. It is, I believe, the single most powerful resource because it helps you fully understand and effectively claim all the benefits you've earned for your entire life, making sure nothing gets left behind after your service.
That's a really powerful case for the VSO. It resonates, especially for anyone who's tried navigating the system alone. That free, personalized guidance is just invaluable.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk veterans and higher education. For so many transitioning folks, education is a total game changer, right? It acts like this force multiplier for their civilian career.
Absolutely. A huge pathway.
Now, the GI Bill, it's been around a while, but it's not static. It changes. How has the GI Bill, maybe specifically the post-9/11 version, changed in the last few years? Especially thinking about online learners or maybe non-traditional programs. Can you kind of walk us through what that looks like on paper now? Are there surprising flexibilities people might not know about?
You're absolutely right. The GI Bill, especially post 9/11, has evolved quite a bit. It's become much more flexible, much more adaptable to the really diverse educational and career needs veterans have today. It's definitely not just about heading off to a traditional four-year university campus anymore.
Okay, so what's changed? Well, one of the biggest shifts is how it handles online learning. Historically, if you were taking only online classes, your housing allowance, your BAH, was capped at this lower national average rate.
Right, I remember that being a thing.
But now, the GI Bill provides a housing allowance based on where the school is located, even if you're fully online. Well, actually, let me correct that slightly. The rule now is if you're solely online, you get half the national average BAH rate if you're enrolled more than half-time. It used to be nothing, then it was half the national average, and while there was talk of changing it further with the Forever GI Bill updates, the current standard for purely online is half the national average rate if attending more than half-time. If you take at least one class in person, you get the BAH based on the school's zip code. My apologies for the slight confusion there. The rules have shifted a bit over time.
Okay, so there's still a distinction, but it's better than it used to be for purely online. And taking just one class in person gets you the local rate.
Exactly. That one in-person class makes a big difference for the housing allowance. It still offers significant flexibility for vets balancing work, family, or maybe living far from campus. It's especially helpful if you live somewhere with a high cost of living but attend a program based elsewhere, or if your schedule just makes regular campus attendance impossible.
Good clarification. What else besides online learning?
Well, beyond just traditional degrees, the GI Bill has really broadened its scope. It now covers a huge range of vocational training programs, apprenticeships, on-the-job training, even helps pay for licensing and certification exams.
So not just college degrees.
Not at all. And a key development many people miss is the VET Tech program. That stands for Veteran Employment Through Technology Education courses.
VET Tech. Okay, what's that?
VET Tech specifically funds these accelerated high-tech training programs. Think coding boot camps, cybersecurity courses, data science, IT certs.
The really in-demand tech skills.
Exactly. These programs are often super immersive, really intensive. They might only last a few months, and they're designed specifically to give veterans immediate, marketable skills. They lead straight to industry-recognized credentials, not necessarily an academic degree.
And the GI Bill covers these.
Here's the surprising part. VET Tech doesn't use your GI Bill entitlement. It's actually a separate pot of money.
Whoa, really? So you save your GI Bill?
You save your GI Bill entitlement? Yes. This really shows that shift in thinking, acknowledging that many high-demand fields need specialized, fast training, not always a 4-year degree.
That's huge. Any other big changes?
Yes. The other massive one is the Forever GI Bill. Officially, it's the Harry W. Colmary Veterans Educational Assistance Act of 2017. What it did was eliminate the 15-year time limit to use your post-9/11 GI Bill benefits if you separated from active duty on or after January 1st, 2013.
So if you got out in 2013 or later, your GI Bill never expires.
That's right. Never expires, which offers incredible flexibility. You can go back to school whenever you want at 30, 40, maybe even 60.
Wow. That changes the game for older vets or career changers.
Completely. It caters to people wanting mid-career shifts, or maybe someone who just wants to pick up a specific skill later in life.
Yeah.
So on paper, the GI Bill today looks much more flexible, much more responsive. It's a lifelong benefit now for many, recognizing that education and career goals change over time. It's moved way beyond just the traditional college path.
That flexibility is massive, especially the Forever GI Bill part. I bet a lot of folks listening might not realize that applies to them if they got out after 2013. And like you said, so many vets aren't looking for that traditional sit-in-a-lecture hall experience anymore. These other options are critical. Now, speaking of flexibility and making the money work, the Yellow Ribbon program often comes up with the GI Bill, but it can still feel a bit murky. Can you break down the Yellow Ribbon program in just plain language for us? So just to clarify, how does this actually help me pay for school, especially if I'm looking at a more expensive place?
Yeah, Yellow Ribbon can seem like this secret club for certain schools, but it's actually pretty straightforward once you unpack it. Okay, plain language. The post-9/11 GI Bill pays up to the highest tuition and fees charged for an in-state public university in whatever state the school is in. That's the cap.
Okay, the in-state public school maximum.
Right. But lots of private schools, or even public schools if you're attending as an out-of-state student, have tuition rates that cost way more than that cap.
Right. Big difference sometimes.
That's exactly where Yellow Ribbon comes in. It's designed specifically to bridge that financial gap.
Okay, so how does it bridge it?
It's basically a voluntary agreement, a partnership between the VA and participating schools, private colleges, universities, or public schools, offering it to out-of-state students. Here's a simple example. Let's say a private university costs $50,000 a year in tuition, but the post-9/11 GI Bill max payout for that state is, say, $27,000 for the year, just using round numbers.
Okay, so there's a $23,000 gap.
Exactly. Now, if that school participates in Yellow Ribbon, they might agree to waive a portion of that gap. Let's say they agree to waive half $11,500.
The school just eats that cost.
They agree to waive it for eligible Yellow Ribbon students, yes. Then the VA matches that amount. The VA contributes another $11,500.
Wow. So the school pays half the gap, the VA pays the other half.
Precisely. In that example, the $11,500 from the school plus the $11,500 from the VA covers the entire $23,000 gap, meaning the veteran's out-of-pocket tuition cost for that year drops to zero.
That is huge. Okay.
So it helps you pay by dramatically cutting down or even totally eliminating the extra cost of going to those higher-priced schools.
Who's eligible for this?
To get Yellow Ribbon, you generally need to be eligible for the post-9/11 GI Bill at the 100% benefit level. That usually means you served at least 36 months on active duty after 9/11, or if you were honorably discharged for a service-connected disability after serving at least 30 continuous days after 9/11.
Okay, 100% eligibility needed.
Yes. And crucially, the school you want to go to must participate in the Yellow Ribbon program. Not all schools do. And even those that do participate often have a limited number of Yellow Ribbon slots available each year. Sometimes it's first come, first served.
So you need to check with the specific school.
Absolutely. You apply for Yellow Ribbon directly through the school's financial aid office or their veterans office, usually after you've been accepted and have your certificate of eligibility for the GI Bill from the VA. It's a total game changer for veterans aiming for maybe more expensive, prestigious programs or specific institutions without taking on a mountain of student debt. It really opens up a wider range of educational choices.
That makes so much more sense now. It's a really powerful partnership directly helping the student cover those higher costs. Now, we touched on VET Tech earlier, but thinking more broadly, for veterans who know for sure they don't want a traditional 4-year degree, what other solid, maybe overlooked options are out there? How does something like, say, vocational rehabilitation and employment fit in? I've heard it called VOC rehab. Does that help someone looking for maybe a faster track to a career or even wanting to start their own business?
You're right to keep highlighting that because one size fits all definitely doesn't work for veteran education. For folks not aiming for that 4-year degree, there's a really strong, effective set of alternative paths out there. They're often designed for quicker, more targeted entry into the job market. So beyond VT Tech, which we know is great for tech skills, there's a vocational rehabilitation and employment, or VR&E. People usually call it VOC rehab, or sometimes VA Chapter 31 benefits.
Chapter 31.
This program is a massive resource and honestly, often really underutilized. It's specifically designed to help veterans who have service-connected disabilities. The goal is to help them prepare for, find, and keep suitable employment. Or, sometimes, just achieve independence in daily living if employment isn't feasible.
So it's specifically for vets with a disability rating.
Yes. Unlike the GI Bill, which is based purely on service time, VOC Rehab is a needs-based program. You need to have a service-connected disability rating, and you need to apply and get an approved rehabilitation plan from a counselor.
Okay, what makes VOC rehab so powerful?
Its approach is really holistic. It can cover way more than just tuition and fees. It can pay for tuition at basically any accredited school, even expensive private ones, often without the caps the GI Bill has. But it also provides money for books, supplies, tools, instruments, even fees for licenses and certifications.
Wow, okay, much broader than just tuition.
And it provides a monthly living stipend, often called subsistence allowance, which can sometimes be more generous than the GI Bill housing allowance, depending on your circumstances. It can fund everything from traditional degrees to vocational training, apprenticeships, OJT, and crucially, yes, it can even fund entrepreneurship training and help cover some startup costs if you want to launch your own small business.
Really? VOC rehab can help start a business?
It absolutely can, if it's part of your approved rehab plan geared towards self-employment. For example, maybe a veteran has a service-connected back injury that prevents them from doing physical labor. VOC rehab might retrain them for a desk job, maybe through a coding boot camp covering all the costs. Or maybe a veteran loves carpentry but needs adaptive tools due to an injury. VOC rehab could potentially fund their apprenticeship tools and training. It's very flexible based on the individual's needs and approved plan.
That sounds incredibly comprehensive. What about apprenticeships?
Yeah, apprenticeships and on-the-job training OJT programs are fantastic options too, especially for hands-on learners, people who want to earn money while they learn a skilled trade. The VA works with employers who offer these approved programs. And veterans in these programs can often receive their GI Bill housing allowance on top of the wages they earn from the employer.
Earn while you learn, plus BAH.
Exactly. While you're gaining valuable skills in fields like plumbing, electrical work, welding, IT, maybe even healthcare, these programs really leverage that strong work ethic and practical skill set veterans bring from the military. They offer a much more direct path to skilled employment compared to spending 4 years getting a general degree.
So the advantage seems clear for certain goals.
Definitely. For veterans who want to get into high-demand fields quickly, these alternative paths are golden, especially if you need to balance work and study or if you want to build on skills you already have. Like you said, a vet with a comms background could jump into cybersecurity fast via VT Tech months, not years. Or a former military mechanic could start an automotive apprenticeship, get certified, and be earning a good living much faster than going the 4-year degree route. These paths really recognize that a degree isn't the only way, and sometimes it's not even the best way, to build a successful and fulfilling civilian career.
That's such a great overview of the different paths. Really highlights that education is definitely not a one-size-fits-all journey. You've given us so many different avenues someone could explore. Now, if you're looking at these different paths, can you actually stack education benefits? Can you combine them with other funding sources like scholarships or maybe state grants? And how would that work for, let's say, a 35-year-old veteran using their GI Bill? Maybe they have a family to support. How can they really maximize the funding they get to make sure things are stable financially while they're studying?
Yes, absolutely. You can often stack education benefits, and it's a really smart strategy, a way to maximize your funding, especially, like you said, for maybe a slightly older veteran who's balancing family, maybe childcare costs, maybe a mortgage. The post-9/11 GI Bill is obviously a powerful primary benefit. It covers a lot, but it absolutely does not stop you from seeking out additional financial aid. In fact, layering resources is highly encouraged.
Okay, so how do you layer? What's the first step beyond the GI Bill?
Your very first step, always, should be filling out the FAFSA. That's the free application for federal student aid.
FFSA. Even if you have the GI Bill.
Yes. This is a huge mistake veterans often make. They assume, I have the GI Bill, I don't need FAFSA. That's wrong, and it can be costly. FAFSA is what makes you eligible for federal aid like Pell Grants. Pell Grants are need-based grants, meaning you don't have to pay them back. Free money.
Oh yeah, free money is good.
Pell Grants are super valuable because they give you direct financial help that you can use for anything: living expenses, books, transportation, childcare, anything the GI Bill housing allowance might not fully cover. They basically add more non-loan money into your overall financial aid package. Now, FAFSA might also make you eligible for federal student loans, but you should always think of those as a last resort after you've exhausted all the grants and scholarships.
Grants and scholarships first, loans last. Got it.
Beyond federal aid from FAFSA, veterans should be really aggressive about hunting down scholarships. There are literally countless scholarships out there, specifically for veterans, their spouses, their kids. They're offered by private companies, veteran service organizations, VSOs again, foundations, even specific schools or academic departments within a university.
Where do you even start looking for those?
Good question. Use online scholarship search engines. Scholarship America, FastWeb are big ones. Student Veterans of America, SVA, has a database too. And don't overlook scholarships offered directly by the school you plan to attend. Check their financial aid website or Veteran Services Office. The great thing about most scholarships is they are stackable. You can usually apply them right on top of your GI Bill benefits without reducing your GI Bill amount.
So they just add extra funds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Helping cover any leftover tuition gaps, living costs, maybe buying a new laptop, helping with childcare. Don't get discouraged if some scholarships seem small, like just a few $100s. Those add up really quickly.
Okay, FCFUSA for federal aid, scholarships.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Yes. Don't forget state-specific educational grants. We talked about state benefits earlier. Many states offer additional tuition help, fee waivers, or maybe small stipends for veterans attending schools in that state. Sometimes these are tied to specific programs, or maybe having a service-connected disability rating. These vary wildly state by state, so you have to research your specific state's Department of Veterans Affairs website or education agency. The real key here is understanding the rules for each specific benefit and keeping lines of communication wide open with your school's financial aid office and their veteran services office. They know the systems. So for that 35-year-old veteran with a family, stacking could look like this. GI Bill covers tuition and provides the housing allowance. Maybe a Pell Grant covers books and helps with some living costs. And maybe they find a veteran-specific scholarship that helps offset childcare expenses.
Putting all the pieces together.
Exactly. That comprehensive approach really reduces the overall financial burden. It lets them focus on school and family without crushing financial stress. So the takeaway is, research thoroughly. Apply for everything you might be eligible for. Talk to the experts at your school. Every extra dollar helps ensure stability and minimizes debt after you finish your program.
That's incredibly practical advice. Be resourceful, hunt down every opportunity. Don't leave free money on the table. You know, it's funny, a lot of us go from leading troops in these very structured military environments to suddenly sitting in a classroom next to 18-year-olds who might be more worried about the weekend party than the lecture.
Yeah, that's a definite culture shock.
That shift, it can be really humbling, almost disorienting sometimes. But, it can also be incredibly powerful if you lean into it, embrace the learning opportunity.
Absolutely. A chance for growth.
So given all these great educational opportunities we've discussed, what's one common mistake, maybe a surprising one, that veterans often make when they start using their GI Bill? And more importantly, how can they avoid it to really make sure they get the most out of this incredible educational investment they've earned?
That's a great observation about the cultural shift. And honestly, it ties directly into one of the most common and potentially damaging mistakes veterans make with the GI Bill. It's really about failing to fully understand the fine print, the long-term consequences, or maybe choosing programs that aren't properly accredited or just don't genuinely line up with their actual long-term career goals.
So not doing the homework on the program itself.
Exactly. Many veterans, and it's understandable, they just assume the GI Bill covers everything forever, or that if a program is VA approved, it must be high quality. That's not always the case. A really significant pitfall is enrolling in an unaccredited program, or sometimes these predatory for-profit schools.
Yeah, you hear horror stories about those sometimes.
You do. These places often market really aggressively to veterans. They promise quick results, easy paths to high-paying jobs, and technically the GI Bill will pay for it if the program has gotten VA approval. But if the education isn't legitimate, if employers don't recognize the credential, if it provides little actual real-world value or job placement help, then you've basically burned through your valuable GI Bill entitlement without getting marketable skills or a clear path to a good career. That's just tragic.
Wasted the benefit, essentially. How do you avoid that?
Always verify the accreditation of any school or program you're considering. Use reputable sources like the Council for Higher Education Accreditation, CHEA, or check the U.S. Department of Education's database. Don't just trust the school's website. Also, research their actual job placement rates. Try to talk to former students if you can.
Okay, check accreditation. What other common mistakes?
Another big one is mismanaging the housing allowance, the BAH. Remember, that money is paid directly to the veteran. It's crucial for covering rent, mortgage, living expenses, but it's tied directly to your enrollment status, your credit hours. If your enrollment status changes, maybe you drop a class mid-semester or you fall below full-time status, your housing allowance can be reduced or even stopped completely.
Oh, okay. That could cause problems fast.
It could lead to really unexpected financial hardship, especially if you're budgeting based on receiving that full amount every month. And remember the online rule. If you take only online courses, your BAH is typically capped at half the national average, which might be way less than the BAH rate where you actually live.
So pay close attention to enrollment details.
Yes, and communicate immediately with your school's VA certifying official if anything changes with your classes or enrollment. Don't wait.
Good advice. Anything else on the mistake front?
One more related to the Forever GI Bill. While it's fantastic that it removed the expiration date for many veterans, it doesn't apply to everyone. If you separated from active duty before January 1st, 2013, your post-9/11 GI Bill benefits likely still have that original 15-year expiration date.
Okay. So you need to know your specific separation date.
You absolutely do. Not understanding your specific benefit expiration date could mean you lose out on using earned benefits entirely if you wait too long. The best way to be sure is to log into your eBenefits account, or va.gov. You can confirm your specific GI Bill type and check if there's an expiration date listed for you. Think about it like this. Imagine a vet, maybe a few years out, decides nursing is their path. They find a program online, looks good, but they don't check the accreditation properly. Then maybe they drop one class halfway through the semester, not realizing it'll slash their housing allowance.
Double whammy.
Right. Suddenly they're scrambling for rent money. And then later they graduate, only to find out employers in their area don't really recognize that specific online degree program. This whole mess could have been avoided by doing thorough research up front, verifying accreditation, and just keeping clear, proactive communication going with the school's veteran services folks.
So treat your education like a mission. Do the recon, plan carefully.
Exactly. Apply that same strategic planning, that same due diligence, that same mission analysis you used in the military. Don't leave your hard-earned benefits up to chance or, worse, predatory schools.
That's a critical mindset shift. Treat it like a mission. Excellent point. Okay, let's pivot now to another huge cornerstone of civilian success and maybe long-term wealth building. Property taxes and buying a home. You know, when you're used to PCSing every couple of years, the idea of actually planting roots somewhere, It can feel really strange, unfamiliar.
Definitely a big shift in thinking.
But home ownership, it really can be that anchor we sometimes need after service. It offers stability and, like you said, a clear path to building generational wealth. So from your perspective, what's the single biggest financial advantage, the biggest leverage point for veterans stepping into the housing market? What truly sets veterans apart from the average civilian trying to buy a house? What makes it different for us?
You've really hit on a fundamental truth there. Home ownership is absolutely a cornerstone for building that long-term financial stability, that generational wealth. And for veterans, yes, there is an unparalleled advantage available. The single biggest financial leverage point, the thing that truly sets veterans apart when buying property, is undeniably the VA home loan.
The VA loan, okay.
What makes it so fundamentally different and frankly overwhelmingly better for eligible veterans compared to, say, a conventional loan or an FHA loan, it's this powerful combination of benefits that directly tackle the biggest hurdles most people face when trying to buy a home.
Okay. What are those key benefits?
Firstly, the most significant one, the absolute game changer, the zero down payment requirement.
No money down.
No money down. For most home buyers, saving up that big down payment, typically anywhere from 5% to 20% of the home's price, that's the single biggest barrier, it can take years, sometimes decades, to save that kind of cash.
Yeah, that's a huge hurdle for most people.
With a VA loan, qualified veterans can buy a home with literally $0 down. That immediate entry point means you get your foot in the door of homeownership much, much faster. Without those years of saving, you start building equity right away.
Zero down is huge. What else?
Secondly, VA loans consistently offer incredibly competitive interest rates. Because the loan is guaranteed by the Department of Veterans Affairs, the lender takes on less risk. That allows them to offer better rates, generally lower than what you'd find with a conventional mortgage, and even just a fraction of a percentage point lower on your interest rate. That can save you tens of thousands of dollars over the typical 30-year life of the loan.
Wow. Okay, lower rates too.
And third, maybe just as impactful as the zero down payment, is the absence of private mortgage insurance, or PMI.
Ah, PMI, that extra monthly cost.
Yeah. Exactly. PMI is that expensive extra monthly premium that's typically required on conventional loans if you put down less than 20% equity. And FHA loans have something similar, called MIP Mortgage Insurance Premium, which is often required for the life of the loan. This insurance protects the lender, not you, the borrower. But you're the one paying for it, often hundreds of dollars extra each month, until you build up that 20% equity stake in your home.
Money just vanishes every month.
Pretty much. The VA loan completely eliminates this expense. No PMI, ever. That significantly lowers your effective monthly housing cost right from the start. It frees up cash for other things, savings, investments, necessities. You know, on a $300,000 house with a conventional loan, if you put less than 20% down, PMI could easily add $150, maybe $250 to your payment each month. With a VA loan, that money stays in your pocket or maybe goes towards paying down your principal faster.
So it's zero down, competitive rates, no PMI.
When you stack those up against conventional loans needing big down payments and often PMI or FHA loans requiring a down payment and mortgage insurance, the VA loan just stands head and shoulders above as this incredible financial tool. It's specifically designed to make homeownership accessible and affordable for people who've served. It's not just another loan product. It's really a direct, substantial financial benefit earned through service. It truly levels the playing field in the housing market.
That no PMI part alone feels like a huge weight lifted off the monthly budget. And yeah, zero down is just transformative for getting started. Now, let's talk about something else that can be a bit confusing, but also sounds like an incredibly powerful financial advantage for many veterans. Property tax exemptions for disabled vets. How do those actually work? Are they available everywhere, or is this another one where you really need to know your specific state's rules? So just to clarify again, if someone has a 100% service-connected disability rating, could they really pay zero property taxes in a state like Texas? Or maybe get a big break somewhere else?
That's a fantastic and really crucial question. And the short answer to your clarification is yes.
Yeah.
In Texas, if you have that 100% service-connected disability rating from the VA, you absolutely could pay zero property taxes on your primary residence.
Wow.
However, this is exactly where that state-by-state rule comes into sharp focus. It is critical, absolutely critical, to understand that property tax exemptions for disabled veterans vary enormously from one state to the next. They are not available everywhere to the same degree. And they're definitely not automatic. You have to apply.
Okay, so Texas is generous, but not everywhere is Texas.
Yes, exactly. The general idea is that states provide either a full exemption or maybe a partial exemption on the assessed value of a veteran's primary home. their homestead. And eligibility is almost always tied directly to your VA disability rating percentage. So for example, you've got full exemption states, like we said, Texas, Florida, Alabama, Michigan, maybe some counties in Louisiana. Several others offer 100% property tax exemption for vets with 100% rating on their main home. Your tax bill could literally be $0. Then you have partial exemption states. Other states might give a partial break, often by reducing the home's assessed value for tax purposes. Virginia, for instance, exempts 100% rated vets from state and local property taxes on their home, but the eligibility details can be specific. California has a basic exemption and a much larger disabled veterans exemption, but that bigger one might not wipe out the whole bill, and it can depend on your income level too. Some states use specific tiers. They might offer different levels of exemption based on your disability percentage. So maybe a 50% rated vet gets a certain reduction, while a 70% or 100% rated vet gets a larger one. And then there are no exemption or very limited states. A few states unfortunately offer no specific statewide property tax break for disabled veterans, though maybe some local towns or counties might have small programs.
Okay, so huge variation. How do you actually get the exemption if your state offers it?
You typically need to provide proof of your disability rating from the VA. Usually that's a letter from the VA confirming your percentage. And then you'll need to file a specific application form with your local county tax assessor's office, or maybe the municipal tax office. It's really crucial to remember these benefits are not automatic. You have to proactively apply for them, claim them. Often you have to reapply or certify every year. And there are usually deadlines for filing the application, which can also vary by location.
Gotta stay on top of the paperwork.
You do. But the payoff is huge. These exemptions represent a significant ongoing financial boost. It literally saves you thousands of dollars year after year, directly cutting your cost of living. But you absolutely must research the specific laws in the state and even the county where you plan to live. Doing a state-by-state comparison is essential. A house that seems affordable in one state because of these tax breaks might become much more expensive in another state that doesn't offer them. So definitely factor these potential exemptions into your decision-making when choosing where to settle down post-service, especially if you have a service-connected disability. It's part of that mission planning we talked about.
That's such a vital clarification. Definitely not a blanket rule across the U.S. Research, research, research is key. Okay, so beyond the amazing financial benefits of the VA loan itself and these state-specific tax breaks, what else should transitioning service members really know before they jump into using a VA loan? Are there common pitfalls? Or maybe red flags they should watch out for, either from lenders or even with the properties themselves? Things to know to ensure the home buying journey goes smoothly.
Yeah, this is a critical conversation to have. Because while the VA loan is phenomenal, understanding its specific nuances and potential hiccups is really essential for a smooth ride. First thing to know, while there's no down payment, there is something called the VA funding fee.
Ah, the funding fee, right.
This fee helps offset the cost of the program to taxpayers. It keeps the VA loan program running for future vets. The amount varies. It depends on things like your type of service, whether it's your first time using the loan or a subsequent time, and whether you choose to make a down payment anyway, even though it's not required. For instance, a first-time user putting $0 down typically pays a funding fee of 2.15% of the loan amount.
Okay, so it's percentage of the loan.
Yes. However, and this is huge, this fee is typically waived entirely if you are a veteran currently receiving VA disability compensation for a service-connected condition.
Waived completely if you have a disability rating.
Generally, yes, if you're receiving compensation. That waiver is a significant saving right there. And even if you do have to pay it, you usually have the option to finance it, roll it into loan amount instead of paying it upfront in cash.
Okay, funding fee waived for disability recipients. Good to know. What else?
Second, you need to understand the VA appraisal process and what they call minimum property requirements, or MPRs. The VA requires its own specific type of appraisal, often called a notice of value, or NOV. Its purpose is to make sure the property meets certain basic standards for safety, sanitation, and structural soundness.
So the VA wants to make sure the house is decent.
Exactly. These MPRs are really designed to protect you, the veteran buyer. To ensure you're not buying a total money pit or something unsafe, it means the VA won't guarantee a loan on a house that's falling apart, has major structural problems, or significant health hazards like bad mold or exposed lead paint.
What kind of things typically fail MPRs?
Common issues might be things like exposed electrical wiring, lots of peeling paint, especially in older homes where lead is a concern, Missing handrails on stairs, maybe a roof nearing the end of its life, or even utilities that aren't working properly. If the VA appraiser flags an NPR issue, the seller usually has to fix it before the loan can close.
So it protects the buyer from immediate repair costs.
Yes. A red flag here would be any lender or seller who seems like they're trying to rush you, or maybe bypass the VA appraisal somehow. Or if you look at a property and it clearly looks like it's going to fail NPRs, those are immediate warning signs to be cautious.
Okay, NPRs protect the buyer. What's the third thing?
Third, remember that while the VA guarantees the loan, the actual money comes from a private lender, a bank, a credit union, a mortgage company. It is absolutely paramount to choose a VA loan-savvy lender.
Someone who actually knows VA loans well.
Yes. Look for a loan officer or company that specializes in VA loans. They understand the unique paperwork, the timelines, the specific requirements like NPRs and the funding fee. Using a lender who's inexperienced with VA loans, that can cause major delays, tons of frustration, maybe even cost you the house if deadlines are missed.
What's a red flag with lenders?
A big red flag is a lender who tries to steer you away from a VA loan and towards a conventional or FHA loan, especially without clearly explaining why that other loan type would genuinely be better for you specifically. Or a lender who seems to be charging excessive fees, things that aren't typical VA loan costs. Always get a detailed loan estimate document and compare offers from multiple lenders. Because the VA loan has these unique aspects, a knowledgeable lender makes the process smooth. An inexperienced one can turn it into a total nightmare. Don't be afraid to shop around, interview several lenders, maybe even ask if they have references from other veteran clients.
Great advice on picking the lender. Any general real estate red flags vets should watch for?
Yeah, building on that, just some general red flags in any real estate deal that first-time buyers, including veterans, should be really wary of. Be suspicious of properties listed way below market value without a really clear, believable reason. It could mean there are major hidden problems, foundation issues, failing systems, maybe even problems with the property title.
If it looks too good to be true.
It often is. Also, always be suspicious if a seller or their agent tries to discourage you from getting your own independent home inspection. A thorough inspection by a qualified inspector you hire is absolutely non-negotiable. It's your main defense against buying a house with huge, unforeseen repair bills.
Don't skip the inspection, ever.
Never. Predatory lenders, like we touched on, are another huge concern. Watch out for loans with crazy high interest rates, lots of hidden fees buried in the fine print, or really unfavorable terms like big penalties if you try to pay the loan off early. And finally, beware of high-pressure sales tactics. Anyone trying to rush you into signing contracts before you've had time to read everything carefully and understand it, that's a bright red flag.
Take your time. Read everything.
Absolutely. Take your time. Understand every single document you sign. Never, ever let anyone pressure you. This is likely the biggest financial decision you'll make. If things get complicated or you're just feeling uneasy about something, don't hesitate to get independent advice from a qualified real estate attorney. Your due diligence, doing your homework, is your best shield in the sometimes tricky world of real estate.
That's critical advice. Protecting your investment right from the start, whether it's from bad deals, bad lenders, or hidden problems with the house itself, that's paramount. And thinking about investment. You know, when you're used to that PCS cycle, moving every few years, planting roots really can feel strange, profoundly unfamiliar. For a lot of us, the military gave us a clear path. Structure, civilian life. We have to forge our own path. And homeownership, it really can be that anchor we need post-service. It offers stability, sure, but also that pathway to building generational wealth we talked about. So how can veterans, even if they're starting small, maybe buying a modest first home, how can they begin to really build equity and leverage that homeownership? Turn it into lasting wealth for themselves, for their families. It still feels like such a big leap for some of us, moving from transient to rooted.
It absolutely can feel like a big leap, especially coming from that transient military lifestyle, no question. But homeownership is, without a doubt, a cornerstone, a foundation for building that long-term financial stability, that generational wealth. And even starting small, veterans have these really unique tools they can leverage thanks directly to their service.
So what's the strategy? How do you start building?
Well, the primary strategy, the starting point we already discussed, is simply getting into a home using the VA loan's zero down payment, that immediate entry point. It means you start building equity literally from day one. You're not spending years just trying to save up enough cash for a traditional down payment while home prices potentially rise. Remember, equity is the part of your home you actually own outright. It grows in two main ways. as you pay down the principal on your mortgage each month, and crucially, as the property's market value hopefully appreciates over time.
So your payments are building wealth, not just paying rent.
Exactly. Unlike rent, which is purely an expense gone forever, your mortgage payments on a home bought with a VA loan are building your asset, your net worth.
Okay, so getting in is step one. How do you leverage it from there?
Once you have that initial home, that first base, you can start thinking strategically about leveraging it for future wealth building. For example, maybe down the road, your career changes or your family grows and you need to move. You might be able to use your VA loan benefit again to buy your next home, and potentially you could keep that first home and convert it into a rental property.
Oh, okay. Become a landlord?
Potentially, yes. The VA loan generally allows you to have more than one VA loan out at a time, or to restore your entitlement to buy again, as long as certain conditions are met and you have enough remaining entitlement. Turning that first home into a rental can create a stream of passive income. The rent helps pay down the mortgage on that first property, while it continues to hopefully appreciate in value. You're building your asset base.
Building a portfolio.
Exactly. There's a common strategy people use to build a real estate portfolio, diversifying their investments beyond just the usual stocks and bonds.
Okay. Renting out the first place is an option. What else?
Well, just understanding market cycles is important, even if you don't become a landlord. Real estate tends to be a long-term investment. Buying when the market is stable, or maybe even a bit soft, and then holding onto the property for the long haul. That typically leads to significant appreciation over time. Patience is often key. Just look at historical trends for home values over, say, a decade or two. It's a powerful engine for wealth creation. Also, don't underestimate the power of strategic home improvements.
Sweat equity.
Sometimes, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Investing in smart upgrades, maybe remodeling a kitchen or bathroom, adding an extra bedroom if feasible, even installing energy-efficient windows or solar panels. These things don't just make your home nicer to live in. They also typically increase your home's market value, often giving you a good return on that investment when you eventually sell or refinance. You're boosting your equity through improvements.
So over time, that equity builds up. What can you do with it?
That accumulated equity becomes a powerful tool. You can leverage it for future goals. Maybe use a home equity line of credit, a HELOC, or do a cash-out refinance on your primary home. You could use that cash to help fund college for your kids. Or maybe use it as a down payment on a second property, like that rental we talked about. Or perhaps use it to finally start that small business you've always dreamed of, like we mentioned, VOC Rehab could potentially help with too.
Using your home as a source of capital.
Exactly. Homeownership fundamentally shifts you from just accumulating expenses through rent to owning a tangible, appreciating asset. It's an asset that can potentially be passed down to the next generation or provide capital for them to pursue their own dreams. It really serves as that powerful financial anchor, a solid foundation for your future financial security and independence long after you've hung up the uniform. It's about securing your family's future base of operations.
That's a really powerful way to think about it. Puts homeownership in a whole new strategic light for veterans, connects it right to long-term financial freedom. Wow. We have covered a lot of ground today. Truly a deep dive into the nitty-gritty, the practical realities of this next mission. Now it's time for our lightning round. Quick-fire questions, looking for concise, impactful answers. Ready?
Ready.
Okay, I'll start with this one, maybe share something personal first. For me, honestly. One of the hardest parts of transition was that sudden loss of identity and structure. Going from having this clear mission, knowing your role every single day, to just figuring out civilian life. Even small things, like what to wear besides a uniform, felt weirdly disorienting.
Very common.
So what was the hardest part for you, or what's a broad observation you've made about what trips veterans up the most navigating this shift?
Yeah, based on, lots of observation, countless conversations.
Yeah.
One of the hardest parts for so many veterans is exactly what you touched on. It's that huge cultural shift and the profound loss of that immediate, really tight-knit community and that shared sense of purpose you have in the military. The civilian world, well, it often lacks that instant understanding, that camaraderie, that clear structure. And that can lead to really intense feelings of isolation sometimes.
Yeah.
A real struggle to find meaningful purpose outside the uniform. It's kind of like being on this incredibly cohesive team your whole adult life, then suddenly getting dropped into a game where everyone seems to be playing by different rules and nobody wrote them down for you.
Yeah, that resonates. Okay, next one. What's one essential online resource every single veteran should bookmark right now?
Okay, besides finding a VSO, the website itself, .va.gov, It really is the central, most comprehensive hub for all the benefits info for filing claims, tracking status, accessing services directly, and they're constantly trying to improve it, so even if you used it years ago, it's worth checking out again. It's the mothership.
VA.gov. Got it. Okay, quick take. VA loan or FHA loan for a veteran who's eligible for both.
Oh, for an eligible veteran,
Yeah.
it's almost always going to be the VA loan, hands down. That combination, zero down, no PMI, usually better rates, it just makes it the superior choice over FHA in pretty much every scenario where a veteran qualifies.
All right. Community college or a 4-year university for a veteran just starting their education journey.
You know, it genuinely depends on the immediate goal. If you need foundational credits or you want to explore different subjects without racking up huge debt, or maybe get some specific vocational skills quickly, or just kind of test the waters of being back in school, community college is often a fantastic start. It's cost-effective, flexible. But if you need specialized research opportunities or a really broad academic foundation or certain professional degrees like law or medicine, then a 4-year university might be the necessary path. Both are totally valid, powerful options. The key is thinking about your long-term career goal first, then picking the path that gets you there most effectively.
Makes sense. Last one. What's one pervasive myth about VA benefits that you just desperately want to bust wide open for our listeners?
Oh, there are so many myths, but a big one. It's the myth that applying for, or actually receiving, VA disability compensation will somehow stop you from getting or keeping a civilian job, or maybe prevent you from working for the government in a civilian role, or that it'll mess up your ability to get a security clearance.
Yeah, I've heard people worry about that.
It absolutely does not do any of those things. Your disability benefits are compensation. They're for service-connected conditions you earn through your sacrifice. They have zero bearing on your eligibility for civilian jobs or your standing in the civilian workforce. Don't ever let that fear stop you from filing for the benefits you were genuinely owed.
That's a huge myth busted right there. Fantastic lightning round. Wow. We have really unpacked so much today, truly navigated the complexities of post-military life this next mission. Look, whether you're literally one day out of uniform or maybe 10 years into being a civilian, transitioning is so much more than just changing your clothes or finding a new job title. It really is a strategic opportunity, a chance to define and then build your next mission, but this time completely on your own terms. From really digging in and tapping into every single benefit you've earned, to thoughtfully pursuing education that actually lines up with your goals, and strategically using your property ownership rights, you now have, hopefully, a much clearer roadmap, some powerful tools to truly win in civilian life. You earn these opportunities through your service. Understanding them, like we did today, is the absolutely critical first step to actually seizing them and building the life you really envision for yourself and your family.
And this deep dive, as comprehensive as we tried to be, it still leaves, I think, an important question, something for you, the listener, to really reflect on. Beyond all the tangible benefits, the practical strategies we discussed today, the dollars, the degrees, the houses, how might embracing and really powerfully articulating your unique post-military identity, how might that empower you to define and achieve success entirely on your own terms in this new and exciting chapter of your life?
That is a truly powerful thought to chew on, something to definitely carry forward. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. If you have more questions that came up during this discussion about your own transition or maybe ideas for future missions you'd like us to tackle, definitely drop them in the comments wherever you connect with us. And please be sure to check out the episode description. We've put together a curated list of all the resources and guides we mentioned today.
Thanks for dropping in with us on The Drop for today. Remember, your mission doesn't end when the uniform comes off. Whether it's benefits, education, or building your future, this is your next chapter and you don't have to go it alone. If today's episode helped you, share it, drop a comment, and hit that subscribe button. Until next time, stay ready, stay focused, and keep pushing forward. The Drop for today, signing off.